Hello and welcome to MVP, the Master's Voice podcast on MediaBrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla, and with me today is my distinguished guest. I'm very proud to welcome to this episode of our award-winning podcast series. Please join me in welcoming Biren Ghose, Chairman, CII National AVGC Committee and Country Head, Technicolor India. Biren, welcome to the show and thank you for recording this at 7:30 a.m. of a working morning.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this conversation. It's always great to talk about the industry that we're so passionate about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Biren, and thanks also to Neetu Sikka of CII for having facilitated this interaction, and most particularly to you for all the time and, the emotional investment that you always put into everything that you do, particularly with championing the wonderful things that CII does and the AVGC industry and sector and other spaces in the industry. Biren, before we begin our chat, allow me to introduce you to my listeners, especially the very young and new professionals in the ecosystem who might perhaps, wonders will never cease, might be a little unaware about you. So by your leave, Biren, here goes. Biren Ghose, Chairman, CII National AVGC Committee and the Country Head for Technicolor India, is my distinguished guest on this episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast on MediaBrief.com. Biren has been Country Head for Technicolor India for more than 13 years. He has taken the India studio to a staggering strength of 7,000 artists and technicians. Technicolor Creative Studios sports marquee brands, MPC and The Mill in visual effects, Micros in animation and Technicolor games. The company is today the world's largest production studio and the only global producer across animation, VFX and games called AVGC in India. Biren is a thought leader and industry evangelist for the past 20 years. During his stint, Technicolor's brands and clients have won more than 8 Emmy Awards for animation, 4 Academy Awards, 24 Cannes Lions and a clutch of VES, BAFTA, British Arrows and other awards. Biren is chairman for the CII National Committee for AVGC and the vice chair for CII's Media and Entertainment Committee. At a personal level, in 2021, Biren received the National Order of Merit, a French knighthood, making him a chevalier. In 2021, Biren was awarded the Global Asian of the Year, presented by ET and Asia One. Animation Masters Summit AMS Awards 2022 honored Biren for his special contribution to Indian animation industry. Biren proudly serves on the National Task Force for AVGC, providing thought leadership for India as per the vision and mandate of the Honorable Indian Prime Minister in 2022. Biren is multifaceted and has a passion for art, music, Formula One, tennis, photography, wines and spirits. And yes, he is blessed with the most amazing, enlightening and inspiring spirit for each and every person who's ever come in contact with him, and definitely keeps evangelizing and empowering the industry through all his cooperative efforts. So that's my distinguished expert, Biren Ghose, Chairman, CII National AVGC Committee and Country Head, Technicolor India. Biren, welcome once again to the episode and let's start. So Biren, allow me just to set the context a little bit here, okay? The Consortium for Indian Industry, the CII, has always been a very significant enabler of enterprise across sectors, and the third Global AVGC and Immersive Media Summit covering animation, visual effects, gaming and comics will roll out across 2 days on the 29th and 30th of August 2022 at the Hotel Lalit in New Delhi. CII has taken a significant position across the media and entertainment space, and this event is a spin-off for the specific reason that the animation, visual effects and comics sector, also referred to with the acronym AVGC, is growing meteorically within that space. India has made significant strides within this digital media space, and I could think of no better person than you, Biren. You are perhaps among the dozen or so, or even fewer in that number, pioneers who have seen this industry grow from its very inception in India. My listeners, Biren continues to evangelize the AVGC sector and has architected and steered the CII Summit FX from its kickoff in 2020 to its first coming out on the live stage this month. I believe, and I say Godspeed and God's strength to this, the single biggest and most significant event. My conversation with Biren Ghose will tell us why. So Biren, for the benefit of everyone who listens to and follows MVP, the Master's Voice podcast and MediaBrief.com, Biren, I'd like you to set the context here, the amazing past delivery and the future potential of the AVGC industry as a trailblazer within the overall MAD landscape. How do you, as a respected thought leader, enabler, statesman, see the AVGC sector play out over the next few years in terms of its trajectory and growth rate? Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Pavan. I believe our conversation today is really about making the case for why animation, visual effects, games and comics, called AVGC for short, is an idea whose time has come. This is that part of the media industry that has conventionally made films and TV and games and other forms of content, including for brands and social causes, a real game changer. Of late, the AVGC content has gained euphoric status as the world looks to see how immersive media is promising viewers a venture into mysterious new journeys in the emerging paradigm of AR, VR and extended reality. Media has always been about new explorations that take fresh content to newer and younger audiences as consumers access even more sophisticated devices. All of this enables more exciting forms of engagement, and we all know how phenomenally entertainment washes away from our souls the dust of everyday life. The entertainment world is that free space that lets creativity roam across the length and breadth of our storytelling lexicon. Those in the business, like myself, are always constantly trying to predetermine what will work, how to make things work, and how this can be monetized viably in the future.
Oh, absolutely, Biren. Right, please go ahead.
Let me explode a myth. What's changing the world is not technology. Technology merely transforms us as consumers. As a result of our transformation, we then expect a higher standard of what we are offered according to our altered state, and therefore devices that have more pixels per square inch and accordingly content that is now richer in its resolution and sound that must satisfy our heightened senses is really what defines the future paradigms. Storytelling has become more exciting as film grew in sophistication over the last 100 years. And yes, 105 years ago, my company Technicolor brought color to our screens. Since then, every possible emotion has been evoked by the creative expressions and representations in the audiovisual space in what we now call the experience economy. And it's these new devices and amazing screens that give us the opportunity to make our spirits soar. Ours is a business that makes everyone feel positive about today by transporting them tomorrow.
That's amazing. That's really very insightful indeed, Biren. For those of us who care, and I think everybody does, about what this means, the opportunity means in terms of dollars and rupees, can you give us a bit of an overview, please?
Sure. India's AVGC sector had an overall market size of $2.3 billion in 2019. And at this stage, we were less than 1% of the global market.
Right.
What we are seeing now is that this is going to be about $4.2 billion by the end of 2023, which will still be nearly 1.75% of the global industry. That is really our opportunity. The sector is expected to grow about 2.5 times over the next 4 years. This is because the world market itself is projected to grow from $290 billion, to about 11% growth rate between 2020 and 2026.
Wow.
And the market in India is of course growing at about double that rate. So we are actually gaining market share, but that is the phenomenal opportunity. And if you look at the estimates of where we want to reach by 26, 27, it shows that we are growing by about 27% compound annual growth rate.
That's an amazing promise, and you've really laid out the potential very, very hearteningly for everybody in the industry. What's driving this growth, Biren?
Entertainment and forms of imagery and simulation, which animation and visual effects and games bring, is actually jumping out of just the entertainment box and is driving a lot of adjacent sectors: advertising, education, healthcare, defense, R&D, industrial design, especially any place where simulation is involved. We are opening doors to the possibility that the audiovisual industry brings through imagery and engagement. So clearly, the best is yet to come.
Wonderful. So, Biren, I still want you to give me, if you have any additional perspective on, touch upon what are the drivers of the AVGC industry. You've told me what the wonderful possible applications could be, but specifically, what are the drivers? What is it doing to content creation and consumption? Is it expanding the audiences or taking share from existing forms of entertainment, the AVGC industry?
Right. So, Pavan, we know that storytelling is the attempt to craft something artistic in its quest for immortality.
Beautifully said.
Consumers are looking for something that lifts their spirit and is unapologetically spectacular.
Wow.
The stories of today and tomorrow need to be mounted in ways that are more stylized and yet have an underlying truth which reflects the emotions and sentiments of the time. To see the Earth from space needed $1 billion of money when NASA had to send astronauts to the moon. Today, we could send someone there with a VR headset and overwhelm them with nearly the same indescribable experience. The CG-driven VFX world is the enabler of that paradigm. Stories that go global transcend planetary boundaries, beyond lands and people.
Right.
And that's what we did for Sir Ridley Scott in The Martian, or for Mark Zuckerberg when he launched Meta, or for DreamWorks Animation, who want to create this fantastic world, which is for DreamWorks Animation, who wanted to create a poetic vision of fire-breathing dragons in a Viking village in an imaginary age gone by. The AVGC world is about franchises, and we at Technicolor Creative Studios have worked, for example, on every Harry Potter movie, several James Bond films, many of the Pirates of the Caribbean, Shrek, and even Mickey Mouse.
Lovely.
Yes, we work on Mickey Mouse even today.
Oh.
These are more than games or film or TV series. They are major consumer brands and franchises.
Yes, absolutely.
While today they are made for specific platforms and are extended to others on a format by format basis, I predict that the metaverse will bring them into one more holistic technology enabled environment.
Wonderful.
As and when that happens, AVGC will help extend the viewing opportunity from a single vertical format of a movie or a TV series by making that content more liquid and fluid, such that its CG adaptation and immersion can be presented as a universe of viewing capabilities like never before. And finally, it's about enhancing the story into a 360-degree franchise which includes you and I immersed in it.
Lovely, lovely. And I am amazed at the breadth and depth and fabulous quality of the work that even Technicolor has done for India as a great ambassador of the amazing technical and creative quality, talent and ability to really produce wonderful work. Truly, thank you very much for that, Biren. Thank you and Technicolor for that. Right, Biren. Over and above the vision you have just set out, can you tell us why the AVGC industry is becoming a strong government priority? Actually, the answer to that is already there in your previous replies. But tell me, how can the government help what should be and is a very industry-driven sector? What are the possible remediations to growth that need government support? And what's the strategy that will take the AVGC sector to its intended zenith, which is where it truly belongs?
Right. This is a very important question that is going to be explored at the summit. When we get together, government and industry and academia and all the professionals involved. But I'd like to say that the trajectory of any industry, from its start, from its early days, to reaching a significant global scale, requires a massive upfront injection of financial resources.
Yes.
The scale and composition of digital media production requires funds in some kind of a upfront turbo dose.
Okay.
And in several major countries, the state plays a key role in helping our industry compete for global market share, so that their local players can actually participate in receiving funds, receiving marketing support, pavilions at the marketplaces that dot the globe, buyer-seller meets, and making sure that there's an awareness about the industry amongst young people and parents as to the fact that this is an industry with green shoots, but with the prime pumping that we're talking about, can really take it to the next level.
Right.
And we've seen, Pavan, that venture capital has already become very active in games and animation IP within the Indian AVGC arena.
Right.
So, success stories here will imbue credibility among the investee community,
Right.
and help grow investments across startups and SME players in the domestic space, and help them garner a wider recognition and attention, catapulting them to a global platform.
Right.
In such a sunrise business, there must be seed capital that provides upfront money when conventional banking is not geared to provide this type of risk financing.
Correct.
There have been 3 or 4 unicorns just in the past 2 years, and there have been listings by games companies, many of whom have shown great progress since then. And services players like Technicolor and others have established an IT-like global delivery model from India, which demonstrates that this sector is truly that idea whose time has come.
Right.
I would like to point out that states like Karnataka have launched an AVGC fund called Kitven,
Right.
and the Software Technology Parks of India has promoted a clutch of centers of excellence in various parts of India. In fact, I play chief mentor in 2 of them in the Northeast.
Wonderful.
And these become the user case to help frame the national AVGC policy, which the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting are steering, with go-to-market plans for the ambitions of startups and SMEs from our country.
Lovely.
And as an invitee of the National Task Force, let me tell you that the thought leadership that this group around the formulation of this policy has put together, and which will be discussed in great detail at the CII Summit FX, is really going to be a game changer.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I salute you for your vision and for championing how you do the entire cause for the AVGC industry in India, and for the amazing support that you give to every group that's working with the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister.
And Pavan, may I just add there, if I may?
Please.
To the point you raised, the government is a catalyst, and in this process can harmonize the various interest groups across the AVGC industry. And we are looking today at the fact that there are almost 4 other ministries,
Right.
which are the Ministry of Higher Education, the Ministry of Skills and Entrepreneurship, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, because exports is such a key part of this, the Ministry of Electronics and IT, which I mentioned has all its centers of excellence, with the erstwhile STPI locations.
Right.
So this is really a confluence. It is really something that is showing a true collaboration across many stakeholders, And I think that's the role that the government can definitely play in order to realize the vision that we all have for the successful outcomes in this sector.
Absolutely amazing crossroads of cooperation and mutual support. Really wonderful. You mentioned the Global AVGC Summit, and I really would like to move on now to a bit of a deep dive on the upcoming third Global AVGC and Immersive Media Summit that's rolling out on the 29th and 30th of August 2022 in New Delhi at the Hotel Lalit. And I recommend that everyone who's listening to this should actually bookmark this and try and attend the event in person. It's one of the biggest ones coming out of COVID, where people will meet and network and exchange ideas, thoughts, and perhaps opportunities, not only seeking opportunities to grow, but also helping other businesses, so that this entire wonderful cooperative effort on AVGC can really go to its logical fruition and reach the zenith that it is intended for. So please, Biren, give us a deep dive on the summit.
Thank you. The CII Summit Effects 2022 is the first pure play animation, visual effects, games and comics confluence that takes place in India. And it was born within the 2 years of COVID-19, when of course it had to be on a virtual platform.
Right.
And today we have the chance to bring this out onto the live stage. It is particularly important in the context of what I mentioned, is this collaboration, if you like, the various congregation that has happened around the national policy creation, where these different stakeholders have been working together over the past 3 months based on the charter that was initiated by the clarion call from the Indian Prime Minister to take AVGC industry as a vehicle of Indian storytelling and taking this prowess to the world. The conference is actually quite diverse, because each of the A and the V and the G and the C in fact are deserving of their own meetings and summits.
Absolutely.
But when they come together, there is this fantastic confluence again of startups, innovation, and the reforms we are going to bring into school and college education, the need to create jobs through skills and entrepreneurship, to bring across the business to business opportunities. And you may know that the Commerce and Industry Ministry has recognized AVGC as a champion sector in order to help it catapult the number of jobs it can create over the next 3 to 5 years.
Right.
I also believe in the end that such meetings really are a celebration.
Right.
You are going to see here the Oscar-winning making of behind the scenes of visual effects movies, visual effects that has won several short films, advertising films, been the champion of the Super Bowl Sundays that have come out, where the most expensive commercials are created and portrayed. You're going to see games that have actually taken Indian audiences or Indian players from a pre-COVID base of 250 million to something like 440 million just in 2 years.
Wow.
All of this is a celebration. This is a showcase where it not only serves to mark what happened, but acts as an inspiration to those that want to enter this industry by looking at, what did the champions have for breakfast?
Wow. So across the 2 days, if you want to just give me a very quick back of the envelope, okay, this is what's going to happen. These are the kind of sessions, etc. I mean, this is going to really inform and inspire and enthuse everybody who's part of the AVGC industry in India, with the government's decision, its plans, and of course, having created and, having stepped up to create this amazing confluence, which you are empowering through the Global AVGC and Immersive Media Summit. So do you want to just tell me, for the professionals who are listening in, what they can expect across those 2 days? It's a packed program, but just pick up what you think really is important. I think every session has been really handcrafted and the whole thing flows very logically. But nevertheless, just pick your picks.
Well, day one is really going to be the breakdown of what both government and industry are going to showcase as how are we going to change the way by which the creative sector, mythically called the right brain, can now become something that a young student in India can participate in, right from middle school all the way to higher education, in the undergrad programs.
Right.
We've had the chairman of the AICTE, which sets curriculum, very much driving some of those conversations. And I think it will be a breath of fresh air that people don't have to go through the rigor of a 100-year-old curriculum in school. And there has been no dedicated faculty of creative arts and sciences when it comes to a 4-year degree program.
Right.
So while 122 or 130 universities today offer some flavors of this by their own concoction, we actually have now looked at the world's best foundational programs in order to make this happen. So that's a very, very strong start in order to reset what we can really do, because I believe that this is while this is it's technology and infrastructure and everything else,
right,
this is a deeply talent-driven industry.
Wonderful.
So I think just like we compose, a score for music or we write a script, I believe that the CII Summit FX 2022, we really tried to compose a conference where some of the themes that I think are going to be explosive are: how do we take Indian IP to the world?
Okay.
Other sessions will tell you how global IP is already being made in India. So this is a two-way process, right? Our stuff going to the world and the world stuff getting made in India. And I think that will really come out very strongly as the opportunity of that two-way street.
And Biren, what I will do actually, just to save you the effort, I shall also add a link to the entire sessions program, so that our listeners and readers of MediaBrief.com can definitely go and check that out, because it is such a wide and a deep conference, so beautifully planned. A lot of effort has gone into it. Lots of thought has gone into it from thought leaders like you and, the rest of your amazing ilk that's come together, pulling together along with the government and its officials to really make this an amazing success, so that AVGC gets that steroid injection, which it doesn't need for sure. It's growing on its own, but which will actually take it to really an amazing level. So I think I'll go on to my next thought. But thanks, Biren, for laying out such a clear roadmap for the industry and pointing to its North Star, India, the land of stories, which must leverage storytelling and make it a more global play. And you are, and the CII Summit is definitely going to enable that. If the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Finance Minister have referenced this in 2022, it's an amazing opportunity to take AVGC to a global scale. So, Biren, tell me, what are the elements of this that will make this a reality? We've seen co-production and audiovisual treaties are a part of this mix, but they've not been leveraged even after they were signed. How will this change, and what will it take on the ground for this big, multifaceted project to become a reality?
So my vision for the Indian AVGC sector is something that totally reimagines India's position in the world in our industry. And the committee and I, our goals together is to kind of articulate a framework that will help translate India's AVGC aspirations into actions and achievements.
Right. So
the visionary ideas, in my experience, visionary ideas tend to leave people behind. And therefore, in my capacity as the chair of the CII Forum, is to try to carry all stakeholders along.
Amazing.
I have some key visionary themes.
Okay.
Number one, to make India a globally coveted premium hub for AVGC, so that we create content both for original IP as well as for services.
Okay.
Number two, to make India a prominent player in the global AVGC marketplace by participating in key markets across the world, but also to take events like the CII Summit FX to become one of the most sought after destinations for business to business networking through our thought leadership.
Right.
Number three, to develop tools, technologies and infrastructure solutions locally so that we can really power the ecosystem and help it scale across the country, taking AVGC from a small and medium-sized player to hyperscale.
Lovely.
And fourth, to develop talent through education and skilling that leverages our demographic dividend and takes this opportunity to tier 2 and tier 3 locations bringing those less advantaged youth with high creative potential into the mainstream.
Excellent, excellent. 4 pillars of growth. Truly visionary. And the best thing is that you are conscious about the need, and I sense that you believe it is your complete, innate, personal and professional responsibility to take everybody along with these visionary ideas so that they become an intrinsic part of every professional's thinking DNA, and really gets empowered and empowers the entire AVGC industry in India. Biren, what advice do you have to youngsters seeking to make a career in media and entertainment, and particularly in the AVGC industry? What values, skills do you think they must have and aim for? How do they make their candidature, as it were, stronger for an entry and growth in the AVGC industry in India?
Well, Pavan, you see, I am surrounded by 7,000 very young people. So by the sheer osmosis, I think like them. I'm very young.
Wonderful. Oh, I know that. I can see that, and everyone in the industry can see that. It's a bit of a, your passion is like rocket fuel that powers you. Go ahead.
So, we are constantly, if you look at our industry over every single year of the last 10 or 20 years, we are at a constantly moving crossroad where creativity and technology converge. And for the young folks today, they have got 3 pathways that are really going to take them in this industry to various end destinations.
Right.
We talked about ed tech and health tech and R&D and design and everything else, which is all converging, right? It's all becoming a part of one large concoction of what imagery and simulation creates.
Right.
And I'll tell you that there is in my book the ABC that is now becoming something that the youth will embrace and take to the next level.
Right.
So let me start with the A.
Right.
A is artificial intelligence.
Okay.
We are seeing some awesome elements around deep learning and machine learning and open AI, all becoming part of content creation.
Right.
This is a very, very important ingredient. It's like AI inside. B is biotech.
Right.
So much of what we do across the creation of humans and digital humans and creatures and environments and needs an understanding of genomics and the synthesis of biology and engineering. For example, when we create The Lion King, right, for Disney, we have to create approximately 150,000 square kilometers. So we create an environment that is larger than Bangladesh or South Korea, right? And one doesn't realize this, but that's the reality. When you simulate something, it has that scale.
Yeah.
And the C of the ABC is crypto and Web3. So today, if anyone is a seriously aspiring game developer or producer at scale, they have to understand ways by which blockchain will provide this revolution around what I call the distributed consensus.
Right.
Building secure networks on the internet, and the benefits that will accrue through that. So what will fire the imagination of the youth is this magical attraction for smart minds that will graduate, beating a path of, to the door of innovation, both in large companies but also in startups.
Right.
And the AVGC sector is going to see a massive uptick of talent. In fact, anyone in our industry will tell you that the biggest thing is to keep talent excited about the one place that you're at, because there is so much opportunity for them to take their skills to undiscovered heights.
Right.
And if you look at our audiovisual world, it is constantly raising the bar, right? Every single year you see that there are new patents that get discovered in the thousands. And companies like NVIDIA, which hold about 7,000 patents and empower developers to redefine what happens in CG, in computer graphics. So they help to accelerate, developments by these new capabilities. And if you look at India over the last almost 20 years now, it has had development centers for Adobe and Intel, and all the next-gen tools and CG pipelines of the world are created by these companies in India, paving the way for local entrepreneurs to come out not only in the content creation space of AVGC, but also in the technology space here.
Right.
And at the opposite end of the spectrum, you have people that just have to have some cognitive abilities. We can test young people for their visual spatial processing ability,
Right.
to work with stimuli, to comprehend spatial relationships between objects, right?
Right.
And that's how we create, the Lion King or a FIFA game. And it takes very basic skills, motor skills, memory, language. It's not rocket science.
Right.
It's just a magical art form that I call image making.
Lovely. Well put. How about some professional programs for training that will, like, you mentioned the AICTE, that will roll out and probably truly re-look at, reimagine, refresh, and make much stronger and far more relevant, including the ABC that you mentioned, so that it becomes a very powerful platform to create and deploy the best talent for the AVGC industry?
I think you raised a really good question. We spoke earlier in this discussion about why we are 1 or 2% of the global market.
Right.
And I'd like to say that we could be double that,
Right.
because we need to find 200,000 people a year that we currently cannot find or train.
Okay.
And we could take, so every frame of film that we create, right? And I use film as an outdated word because I really prefer to say that we've gone from film making to image making.
Right.
But back to what we were discussing, we could work on certain skill sets. Every frame of film has almost 13 or 14 different processes when we create a single frame of animation or visual effects. And we could actually work with dropouts from school or college. We can work with people who have those skills that I talked about earlier, the basic visual abilities. And we have now actually rolled out tests at a national level through the NFDC has a vertical called the Media and Entertainment Skills Council.
Okay.
And we've just, I think, done a pilot of about 100 schools, which should go to maybe 10,000 schools or more, in how we can help young people to discover their aptitude in this sector from a very early stage.
Wonderful. More strength to you. Such vision and such execution also. I mean, how beautifully you follow through. It's like literally carrying a wonderful, precious baby across. Really wonderful. And Biren, now my final question. I'd like you to share your vision as chairman of CII's AVGC Committee and the conference chair. What do you see as the continuing themes and big ideas that this conference will take forward? You did mention the 4 pillars of growth. They were really cool, very, very good. And more than just saying cool, I would say they were extremely significant and relevant and important. But tell me, what do you see as the continuing themes and big ideas that this conference, the CII's Immersive Media Summit, what will it take forward?
No matter whether we speak of the A, V, the G, or the C, finally, it's all about the creative.
Right.
The understanding of our world is about recognizing that it's about story design. It's about creating content that has a deep gravitational pull, and the science of how this should become a thing of beauty.
Absolutely.
We have just seen the release of something that we worked on that I think is quite seminal on Apple TV just in the last couple of weeks. And it's our most recent work called Prehistoric Planet.
Right.
Voiced by Sir David Attenborough, who I think is certainly over 90 years old. Music by Hans Zimmer.
Right.
And created by our Technicolor team at MPC with director Jon Favreau, with whom we did both Disney's Jungle Book and The Lion King.
Right.
And what does this do? It takes us back 66 million years to a time when majestic dinosaurs and extraordinary creatures roamed our lands, seas, and skies. That is what the power of AVGC can do, which the camera on its own was limited and could not create. So we are now really expanding the horizon in which creativity can work across any of these sectors. And I think my final word could be summed up by a song that I've grown up listening to. It's from a Disney production which we are now creating once again after 84 years. It is Pinocchio.
Wow.
And the song is called When You Wish Upon a Star.
Wow.
Okay. Pinocchio, as you know, Pavan, was able to transform from a wooden doll to a real boy.
Wow.
And when we create content in the AVGC world, we want people to feel that when they wish upon a star, anything their hearts desire will come true.
Wonderful. Biren, this conversation with you has been a remarkably insightful, strategic, and inspiring deep dive for me personally, and I'm sure for everyone who's listening in. And I'm sure also, and I will request everyone to share this conversation, not to promote this podcast, but to promote the wonderful insights that you have brought to this amazingly strong table that is powering AVGC across India and the world. So thank you very much indeed, Biren, for being on the episode, and thanks also to Neetu Sikka of CII for having facilitated this conversation, this interaction. What did you think of our chat so far, Biren?
You know, we've spent the entire conversation talking about imagery and simulation.
Right.
And I think, this conversation reminds me that there is also a huge opportunity for people to concoct their own images when they listen to a MediaBrief podcast. because then we are in real time, almost like inside a game engine, creating our own imagery from the thoughts that are being discussed between ourselves.
Right.
And Pavan, I think people embrace what they create, and you should be extremely proud of the fact that you continue to use an age-old medium of the human voice in order to convey thoughts that are, powerful on their own and don't necessarily need the augmentation of an image.
Oh, lovely. You're very kind indeed.
I'd just like to thank MediaBrief for being a partner for CII Summit Effects. It is important for this industry not only to have the co-productions in what they create as in terms of shows and series and films, but I think co-production is also really important when it comes to taking the message through mediums like MediaBrief to the universe in order to inform, to excite, and to encourage people to grow and to become part of this very compelling industry that is going to take India to its heights in the content space, in the media and entertainment space. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Biren. You're very, very kind, very gracious, and of course, the druid of strategy and empowerment across the entire, the larger media and entertainment space and industry and all the powerful verticals within it, especially AVGC. And you do such a phenomenal job with the CII for every stakeholder, including and working with the government and the Honorable Prime Minister and his task force. So, on behalf of all the professionals who tune into MVP, the Master's Voice podcast, and are decent followers of MediaBrief.com, I would just like to say a very big, heartfelt, grateful thank you. Thank you, Biren Ghose, Chairman, CII National AVGC Committee, and the country head, Technicolor India, for being a part of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast on MediaBrief.com. I enjoyed this conversation, found it extremely insightful, and I sincerely hope, and I'm very confident indeed, that you too would feel the same. Till we meet again in the next episode of MVP, the Master's Voice podcast on MediaBrief.com, this is your host and friend Pavan Chawla saying thank you for having joined me. And, well, till we meet again, as I said, take care, stay safe, bye-bye.